What's going on, guys? Colonel Kelly here, bringing you a LoN Legacy of Nightmares Lashing Tail Kick build. This is going to be a long video, but if you want to do what you just saw in the beginning of the clip and clear Greater Rift 75s in 3 to 4 minutes consistently, even if the Rift is terrible, you'll want to watch the rest of this video. There'll be a lot of detail. And not only that, but Monk is without question the most versatile build, versatile class in Season 9, and now it looks like, unless something changes between now and next season, Season 10 as well. So these guides will not only apply to Season 9, but also Season 10. I'm going to start with the Legacy of Nightmares build because it's the most fun to play in my opinion, and it's the build that's gotten wrong more than any other build as well. So jumping right into the gear, we've got the items that the class is built around, the Litany of the Undaunted and the Wailing Host, the Legacy of Nightmare Rings. As you see, the secondary effect, or the set effect, is while this is your only item set bonus, every ancient item that you have equipped will increase your damage dealt by 100% and reduce your damage taken by 4%. 13 pieces of gear, additive, very important. Damage increase is huge. Damage, or the item or the skill priorities would be crit hit chance number 1. Then you want damage range over damage, crit hit damage increase. Trust me, it's more effective. It's base damage. That's what your multipliers for the 1300% or the 100% for every ancient item is based off of. So the higher that base damage range is, the more damage you're going to do. So crit hit chance, damage range, crit hit damage increase. If you have those rings in those order with those stats, congratulations, you've done better than me. I have not found either of my rings to be very good so far this season. They are workable. Obviously, as you saw, I can clear 75 very quickly, but those would be your best 3 stats. Beyond that, if you're not able to find that, you have to have Ancient for all of these pieces to get the 100% multiplier. But beyond the top 3, it would be cooldown reduction, attack speed, and area damage. So if you've got more rings to choose from, those would be the 3 in that order that I would do. As a whole in this build, area damage and attack speed are pretty interchangeable. If you're having trouble clearing the Rift, you want more attack speed. I'm sorry, if you're having trouble clearing the Rift, you want more area damage. If you're having trouble clearing the RG or beating the RG in a timely manner, then you want more attack speed. Alright, so moving on to the rest of the gear. Items that are must-have, the 3 Lashing Tail Kick items would be the Scarbringer, the Bravera Dancers, and the Gyanak Nakashu. Those are 3 items that you must have to play this build, otherwise you're going to do a lot less damage if you don't. So the Scarbringer, as you see the secondary effect, the damage of Lashing Tail Kick is increased by 300% for the first 7 enemies hit. Yay. It's either 5, 6, or 7. It can roll up to 7. This one's 7. Stat priorities are, you want cooldown reduction because it's 10% on this slot. Cooldown reduction, damage percent, and or attack speed. Damage percent, you can only roll that on weapons, so I prefer that's there. You have enough attack speed on other areas of your gear that you can get that you don't necessarily need it on your weapon, but it is good. And then you have the other weapon is the Ingyam for speeds, so for T13 farming and Greater Rifts 70 or 80 or below. This is the item that you want to use because you're going to kill more elites than you know what to do with. And the secondary effect is your skill cooldowns are reduced by 9 seconds for 15 seconds after killing an elite pack. Up to 10 seconds. This one rolled 9. So it's 8, 9, or 10. And it's this one's 9. So it's decent. It's just not GG. And the same stat priorities there. You want cooldown reduction, damage percent, and area attack speed. And then for the LTK items themselves, you have Bravera Dancers. Lashing Tail Kick attacks 50% faster and deals up to 300% more increased damage. I have 299. Stat priorities are Dex, Vit, All-Res, and Lashing Tail Kick. Lashing Tail Kick is a must. All-Res is not a must, but it does help your survivability. You can't roll secondary resistance, which we'll talk about more later on this specific item. And then the last piece of Lashing Tail gear that you must have, Lashing Tail Kick gear that you must have, is the Gyanak Nakashu. Stat priorities there are Dex, Vit, Crit Chance, and then a high increases Lashing Tail Kick effects. That trumps the secondary effects, which is Lashing Tail Kick releases a piercing fireball that deals 1,284% weapon damage as fire enemies within 10 yards on impact. That's great. It's a wonderful skill. It's going to do just as much damage, if not sometimes more, in large packs as your primary effect. But for the RG sake, the first stat, Lashing Tail Kick, increased by up to 100% trumps the 1200 up to 1400% secondary effect. So if you have a 95 Lashing Tail Kick increase and a 1200 secondary effect, 1200% secondary effect, the 95 versus a 85% and 1400% secondary effect, the 95% would win, just because it does help clear the RG that much faster, and whatever items you're targeting, plus those 7 for the Scarbringer, you're doing more damage to. It's worth trust. And then the additional items that are based upon fire, your elemental damage items. You've got the Cinder Coat. The most important stat on the Cinder Coat is actually that it reduces resource costs, because your fire damage is going to appear to up to 5 other pieces, or 4 other pieces, 5 total. But the resource cost reduction of fire skills is only on the Cinder Coats, and most everything that you're using is going to use a fire skill, so you want that. And then you've got your Mage Fist. This is a GG item. The stat priority on Mage Fist is crit hit chance, crit hit damage, cooldown reduction, and then attack speed and or area damage. I go area damage. Then you have your Nemesis Bracers. Again, you want to roll fire, crit chance, dex vit, secondary resist. Hard item to get, but another item that can roll fire on it is the Swampland Waiters. You're going to have to make friends with the Witch Doctor, get them to roll for you, drop you a pair, or you can always get someone to power level you a Witch Doctor, get to 70, and then spend shards on your Witch Doctor until you get an ancient pair of Swampland Waiters. But it would be better if I was able to get a ancient pair that would already rolled fire, so I could roll off the intelligence for dex, but I just haven't had the patience to do that this season. I don't like switching characters. I feel dirty when I get on a Witch Doctor, so here is my current pair, which does lose me about 650 dex overall, so it's good, it's just not great. And the last item that can roll fire is the one that we'll talk a lot about, is the Hellfire Amulet. This is a nuisance. There are alternatives, gear alternatives for the Hellfire Amulet. If you don't feel like farming, you could use the Eye of Elich and have Dex crit or Fire crit. Fire crit is better, but because you have fire damage on 4 other items, it's not necessarily mandatory. The damage loss isn't huge or as huge, especially when you get 100 Dex or 1000 Dex in addition to it. So it's pretty nominal, the damage difference between the fire and Dex. And it's just easier to get Dex in most cases. But if you have a Fire Eye of Elich that's ancient, again, important, ancient, then you can use that instead of farming for Hellfire Amulets. But you want one of the four must-have stats, 4 must-have passives, but it's something that you're obviously going to have to bear down and grind through. So the 4 passives we'll get to here in a little bit. I have Sixth Sense, which is probably like the 8th best passive, but I just got sick of farming them, so I'm just gonna stick with that for now. And then the last 2 pieces of gear that we'll talk is Lefevre Soliloquy for your shoulders. This is the ideal stats: Dex, Fit, Cooldown, and area damage with a secondary resist. You can roll up to 50% when you use your Cyclone Strike. You get 50% damage increase for 5 seconds. You must use it. Have to have it. And then the last item is just for pure damage increase, the Witching Hour, the best damage dealing belt in the game. You get crit hit damage increase. It's the only belt you can roll crit hit damage increase on, and also can roll with attack speed. So amazing item. That covers all of your gear. There are some gear alternatives, 2 gear alternatives I'll talk about real quickly. One would be the String of Ears. You can roll a String of Ears if you absolutely are taking too much damage. You're going to replace the Witching Hour with a String of Ears so you don't die as much, because if you want Paragon levels, you need those pools of reflection, and String of Ears will help you keep those pools of reflection. And then if you're, again, solo player, you want to level higher gems, you can switch out the Inky Elm for Crystal Fist for more survivability. Alright, now going into the skills. There's a couple skills that you can swap in and out, but there's a couple skills that you just can't touch. So first and foremost, you've got the Lashing Tail Kick, Vulture Claw Kick. That is a must-have. That's the best fire skill. You're doing fire damage. This is the highest damage dealing skill a monk has in single target with those 3 additional items we talked about. So must have, can't switch. It's your primary damage dealer, your only damage dealer. A skill, the best skill in the game, the best skill in the game, Dashing Strike. You can use 3 different runes. 90% of the time when I'm in a GR, I'm using Blinding Speed because it's an amazing skill. You get 40% increased chance to dodge for 4 seconds. That's a lot of survivability, and in GRs you just don't want to lose that. For T13, I can switch to Way of the Falling Star, gain 20% increased movement speed for 4 seconds after using Dashing Strike. And then the last rune I'll talk about, it's fire damage. I see monks using this, but the only advantage to using Dashing Strike Radius would be for the Rift Guardian, because you're going to attack faster, you're going to use Blinding Flash more often, you're going to get more spirit that way. But if you're pushing GRs over 70, you're losing some health sometimes, so Dashing Strike Blinding Speed ends up being a better alternative, in my opinion. Cyclone Strike and Implosion, there's 3 runes I see people running. I always run Implosion because I have area damage on my gear, so I want as many mobs as possible. Implosion increases the pull range of Cyclone Strike to 34 yards, so it's a nice increase from 24 yards. You're getting almost 50% more area. I do see people using 2 others. Cyclone Strike Sunburst, because you have Cinder Coat, so you're reducing the damage. You're reducing the resource cost of this. It's not a damage dealer, it's purely for damage reduction with the Lefevre Soliloquy shoulders that we're using. But if you're resource cost conscious, you can run Sunburst. It's okay. And then the last one I see people running, which I really wouldn't run unless you just like freezing mobs, but Wall of Wind, it freezes them for 1.5 seconds, but I mean, you're going to do that once, and that's really just going to affect Trash, and Trash dies really quick. You have the only rune that you can use for Blinding Flash is a must-have skill and a must-have rune. Blinding Flash, Faith in the Light, done. Talking about it. That's what you got to do. You have 39% increased damage for 3 seconds after using Blinding Flash, and there's one additional thing that we'll talk about as far as why you're using that skill. And then Epiphany Desert Shroud, again, a GG skill. You're decreasing the damage you take by 50% when this is active. You have so much cooldown reduction. You have the Ingyam, which reduces this by 9 seconds every time you kill an elite, so this is always permanently up. It helps you teleport to mobs. It's a great skill, must-have skill. And you get into the passives. So the 4 must-have passives that I will run 96% of the time is Near-Death Experience. Sometimes you die. There's 2 things that kill you on a pretty consistent basis as a monk. Molten, if you're not careful and you're dodging in and out and you're doing some speeds, like Molten will get you sometimes. And then the other is Arcane Enchanted mobs. Arcane does tend to eat a monk alive. So Near-Death Experience, help you keep those pools of reflection. Keep that on. It will help your total Paragon level farming. CC Initiative, dealing damage to enemies above 75% increases your attack speed by 30% for 4 seconds. You're always attacking new mobs, so you always have a 30% attack speed increase. Plus, we're going to use an item that will increase that even further that we'll talk about in the cube. Beacon of Yitar, just an amazing passive, reduces the cooldowns by 20%. Keep it on. And then Harmony, one of the most underrated passives in the game. 40% of your single elemental resist from your items instead increases your resistance to all elements. So, for example, in the Cinder Coat, we've got 194 poison resistance. We're getting 40% of that added back to our all resist. So it's essentially making a secondary stat a primary stat with all resist. GG skill, keep it on your bars at all time. Everything will use Harmony and Beacon of Yitar in most monk builds because they're so powerful. Then you've got the legendary gems. The 2 legendary gems will never change. One you'll swap in and out. Bane of the Trapped, best damage dealing gem in the game, has been since it came out. It increases your damage by X% based upon gem level, and after level 25 it procs itself because it reduces the movement speed of the mob, so yay. Always use it, never take that off. And then Bane of the Powerful is a must-have for speed farming and GR farming. gain 20% increased damage for X number of seconds based upon gem level after killing an elite pack, and after you do kill an elite pack for those number of seconds, you're going to get 50% increased damage to elites and 15% damage reduction from elites. And then the one that you'll swap out is Goguk. I use Goguk for GRs, and I take off Goguk and put in Bane of the Hoarder, or Boon of the Hoarder for T13. It just goes that much faster. And then last but not least, we've got, actually not last, we have two more things, Paragon and Cube. So with the Cube, we have 3 skills. I'm going to talk about this one last because it's the most debated, and I see a lot of monks doing the wrong thing there. But we're using Laws of Seth, Blinding Flash. Actually, let me get my, let me get this open so you can see it there. Use Blinding Flash. Laws of Seth, using Blinding Flash restores 165 spirit. You don't have any spirit generations, you may have noticed in this build, so you have to have Laws of Seth going in order to get that bonus. Keep that spirit up so you can keep attacking to proc your Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac, which is another must-have. Reduce the remaining cooldown of your skills by 1% when you hit with a resource spending attack. Your primary damage dealer and the button that you're going to be spamming or holding on for this entire build is Lashing Tail Kick, which is a spirit or resource spending attack. So every time you hit with that, your resource or your cooldowns are reduced by 1 second. The most notable one here is Blinding Flash. Blinding Flash at 55% cooldown has a 6-second cooldown. So you hit 1, 2, 3, 4 times during that cooldown, you have a 2-second, 1 second, 4 second, 3 second. It's up all the time if you're attacking enough and if your attack speed's high, which brings me to the final item that you always should use, which is the Flying Dragon. It's a chance to double your attack speed when attacking. It's up more than it's down, in my experience. I do see a lot of people running the Furnace. Here's the argument. Here's why they're wrong. Furnace is a 50% permanent damage increase to just elites. It's static. You don't have to rely on a proc. That's why people like it. And it's also just like a lazy thing to use. Most people are like, well, I don't know until you put in the cube. Furnace. Alright, no, here's why they're wrong. Here's why you should always use the Flying Dragon. You have so many different items in this build that lend to needing more attack speed. You have the Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. It's going to reduce your cooldowns every time you hit with a resource spending attack. So the more you hit, the faster you hit, the more cooldown reduction you're getting. Not only that, but the one that this is the skill that's going to affect this the most is Blinding Flash. And the more you do hit Blinding Flash, the more you're going to proc or use Laws of Seth. The more spirit you have, the more you're going to attack. The more you're going to attack, the more you're going to proc. It is very cyclical, and it's extremely obvious when you play with it. Flying Dragon greater than Furnace. Always use Flying Dragon. Always, always, always use Flying Dragon. Just try it once, and you'll be convinced. You'll be sold because it's that much better. And then now, last but not least, we'll get to the Paragon. If you're playing this build, caveat, it's not an easy build to gear for. It takes some time because it has to be all ancients, but it's worth it. So here, I usually try to have about 650 to 700k vitality. I'm sorry, health points. So whatever it takes me to get to that level. So right now I've got 100 of my Paragon main stat points there, but you don't have movement speed on your boots, you're going to put all your points in there, 50 points in movement speed, 50 points in maximum spirit, and then you can either main stat it out, get yourself up to 700 hit points so that you have some more survivability, or just main stat it out. That's preference, based upon how much you're dying. If you're dying more, put more in Vit. For Paragon, for offense, you're going to use crit hit chance, cooldown reduction, crit hit damage, attack speed in that order. For defense, you're going to use resist all, life, armor, life regeneration. For a monk, armor is third and not second because dexterity gives you armor. For other classes, intelligence-based classes, it's their first. Armor always goes first because they don't have any armor. And then for utility, it goes area damage first, resource cost reduction for this build specifically, because you do burn through resource, life per hit, and then gold find is there. Woohoo. Alright, that's the build. The rest of this video will be a 3-minute clear that you just saw the end of. If you have any questions, contact me on my stream, twitch.tv/Colonel Cuddly, or tweet at me, Colonel_Cuddly. Look forward to talking to you guys in the future and hope you like this video.